Good evening, Venezuela and the entire world. You're watching Noticias Ultra Verdad, the only news show brave enough to report how flawless everything is.
That's right, Andrea. Tonight, top story: President Nicolás Maduro once again demonstrated his unmatched leadership by single-handedly solving all of the country's problems before breakfast.
A miracle worker. And in technology news, our president has just released a new revolutionary app that automatically turns any criticism into applause. Incredible.
We also have exclusive footage of the president yesterday playing football against the national team, scoring, let me check. Yes, 10 goals in 5 minutes. Amazing. Let's take a look.
Hace una finta, Nicolás Maduro, chuta,
Incredible. Maduro is perfect.
Error. Narrative overload. Please insert new talking points.
Okay, let's stop there. Obviously, that was fake.
Everything you just saw was intentionally exaggerated to show how fabricated media can be, especially deepfakes and manipulated videos.
In real election, including Venezuela's 2024 election, disinformation was a serious issue. Deepfakes, fake news anchors, and manipulated audio were used to try to shape public opinion.
And this is why media literacy is essential. Check sources, compare multiple news outlets, look for inconsistencies. Be suspicious of videos that seem too perfect or too convenient politically.
Technology can be used to mislead, but it can also help us analyze, verify, and protect the truth.
So next time you see a clip online, ask yourself, is this real or just another digital illusion?
Stay critical, stay informed.
Convocados se realizaron de manera ejemplar y puedo decir ante el pueblo de Venezuela y ante el mundo: soy Nicolás Maduro, presidente reelecto de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela, y voy a defender nuestra democracia, nuestra ley y a nuestro pueblo.
The July 2024 presidential election in Venezuela was defined not just by political repression, but by a dangerous transformation of the information environment. President Nicolás Maduro secured another term by evolving beyond classical propaganda into a post-truth ecosystem, relying on disinformation networks, algorithmic amplification, and most importantly, AI-generated content. By destabilizing truth and exploiting cognitive shortcuts, the state engineered a reality where its narrative is the easiest one to believe. In this video, we examine these computational propaganda mechanisms, the resulting information disorder, and how civil society is attempting to mitigate these effects. Held on July 28 of 2024, the election was widely condemned by international observers as neither free or fair, due to the disqualification of opposition leader Maria Corina Machado and systemic intimidation. Maduro ran against Machado's substitute Edmundo González. Official results gave Maduro 51.2% and González 44.2%, while the opposition parallel counts suggested the opposite outcome. But what was its strategy? The state exploited motivated reasoning, that is to say, the tendency to view facts through the lens of identity and fear, to amplify its legitimacy, discredit external critics, and frame dissent as foreign conspiracy. Let's now examine the institutions that manufacture and enforce these narratives perpetuated by Maduro.
Venezuela's propaganda system is coordinated by the Ministry of Popular Power for Communication and Information. This ministry manages the Bolivarian System of Information and Communication, a network of state-owned TV, radio, and digital platforms designed to present a unified narrative. The ministry's influence is not limited to messaging. Through CONATEL, the national telecommunications regulator, it exercises a strong control over what citizens cannot see. Authority to block websites, revoke radio frequencies, inspect media organization. By mid-2024, More than 100 websites, including international newspaper, investigative outlets, and fact-checking organizations, had been partially or fully blocked. Over 200 radio stations had been shut down since 2016, and TV signals were regularly interrupted when sensitive political content aired. This situation looks like what communication scholars call an information desert, a media landscape where independent journalism is severely diminished, leaving citizens increasingly reliant on informal networks, rumors, and state-approved narratives. One-third of the population, particularly older adults, rural communities, and lower-income groups, still relies on free-to-air television. This entire segment was effectively excluded from opposition messaging during the 2024 campaign, with coverage of Machado being minimal and Edmundo González almost absent. Modern authoritarian regimes now exploit platforms, design recommendation systems, and network algorithms to suppress certain viewpoints. This ensures state-backed narratives dominate, even as citizens may believe they are making independent choices about content.
Let's now look back at the wonderful events of the past year. After
Venezuela.
first free elections, President Prime Minister Admiral General
Nicolás Maduro.
won 98.8% of the vote. But the big story today is the marriage of President.
Political messaging through influencers carries the risk of disinformation. In the interest of capturing as many followers as possible, lies become a powerful weapon for influencers that lack ethical training. Fake news are a big problem for democracies because they spread faster on social media than real news. Many people work in loose groups on apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, and X. This method, called astroturfing, makes it look like there is a real public to support when there isn't. Trending hashtags and repetitive comments can activate psychological tendencies such as bandwagon effect and normative social influence. The bandwagon effect describes our tendency to support an opinion or behavior simply because it appears popular. Online, this is intensified because platforms can artificially inflate what seems popular through likes, hashtag, boosts, or coordinated networks. Normative social influence pushes people to conform to dominant views to avoid criticism or social exclusion. As a result, individuals may publicly align with the majority opinion even if they privately disagree. This creates a false appearance of broad consensus where popularity is mistaken for credibility. In such an environment, dissent can feel isolated, risky, or even pointless.
Maduro's government has developed a hybrid propaganda model that fuses traditional emotional narratives with the precision and scalability of digital tools. The government continues to rely on classic strategies, blaming foreign actors, labeling opponents as extremists, staging spontaneous demonstration, and attributing economic hardship to sanctions. These narratives spread effectively because they trigger anger, fear, and pride, which algorithms amplify. What once circulated mainly on state TV now spreads online through both official accounts and ordinary users. A major innovation in 2024 campaign was the use of AI-generated news anchors and deepfake-style broadcasts. These synthetic presenters, with clean studios, professional attire, and authoritative tone, were convincing, especially on mobile screens.
So how true is it that Venezuela is such a poor country? Has the media exaggerated things in that place? In Venezuela, it is estimated that 8 million people will mobilize in the next vacation. How is it possible? Would you dare to visit the paradisiacal Venezuelan beaches?
They exploit two cognitive biases: cognitive ease, familiar, polished visual make information feel more true, and halo effect, professional-looking presenters increase perceived credibility. When journalists exposed the anchors as synthetic, the government reframed the scandal as a foreign conspiracy.
Todos ellos son de inteligencia artificial, ellos no existen. Ellos son robots de inteligencia artificial. Yo soy un robot.
Hashtag like Somos Inteligencia Social Flooded platforms turning criticism into another attack on national sovereignty, illustrating the authoritarian strategy of overwhelming the public with noise until truth becomes just one claim among many. House of News and its AI anchor Noah exemplify the shift. Seamless blends of real footage, synthetic narration, and text overlays produce endless pro-government content. AI enables infinite low-cost content, rapid modification, targeted micro-propaganda, immediate reactions to political events. This contributes to what theorists call the death of the internet, an environment saturated with synthetic media where distinguishing truth becomes nearly impossible, fostering distrust toward all information, even legitimate journalism. The propaganda is multimodal: videos, audio, text messages, WhatsApp notes, Telegram leaks, and AI commentary. These formats exploit cognitive biases. Confirmation bias: people accept messages aligned with their beliefs. Availability heuristic: vivid, recent contents feel more true. Anchoring: first impression persists even after corrections. Emotional salience: fear-based stories spread and stick. The result is an ecosystem where disinformation becomes physiologically stick, difficult to correct, and highly effective in shaping public opinion.
Over the past decade, Venezuela has dismantled its independent media ecosystem through forced closures, criminalization of journalism, economic pressure on print media, and technical censorship. Newspapers disappeared because the state restricted access to imported newsprint. Independent journalists faced arrest, harassment, and smear campaigns. Even VPNs became unreliable due to targeted disruptions. The systematic degradation of the media environment leaves a void, and with this void, state-controlled narratives dominate with minimal challenges or competition. Citizens who want to stay informed must navigate unreliable VPNs, blocked websites, or private messaging channels, which becomes exhausting over time. Many eventually disengage, not because they believe the government's propaganda, but because the effort to resist misinformation becomes exhausting to sustain. When citizens repeatedly encounter only one narrative, it becomes familiar, and familiarity breeds trust. This dynamic amplifies the illusionary truth effect, the tendency to believe false information to be correct after repeated exposure. Spiral silence: people stay quiet when they believe their opinion is in the minority, creating the false impression that only one viewpoint exists. Social desirability bias: people only express views that seem socially acceptable rather than their true beliefs. And self-censorship: individuals deliberately withhold their real opinions out of fear of consequences. People begin to say less, to share less, and to trust less, except for what feels safe. And in the authoritarian context, safe often means aligned with the state.
Despite overwhelming obstacles, a small but determined network of journalists, civic technologists, and civil society groups works tirelessly to detect and debunk disinformation. Groups like Cazadores de Fake News, Espaja, and ProBox track viral claims, analyze suspicious images, and intensify coordinated manipulation campaigns. Their work includes comparing images with international photo archives, checking metadata from leaked videos, and monitoring hashtags for bot-like behavior. Global platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Meta have established policies to combat manipulated media. However, enforcement tends to be uneven, particularly in the Spanish-speaking sphere and in politically sensitive situations. This inconsistency is leveraged by authoritarian regimes, which take advantage of the gaps by hosting content, for example, on domestic services, and deploying semi-automated networks designed to evade detection. AI detectors, whether for synthetic images, voices, or text, remain unreliable due to high false positives, rapid model updates by propagandists, lack of multilingual training data, and the ease of combining real and fake footage. In several cases, AI-generated anchors were not flagged by detection tools at all. This fuels confusion because citizens cannot rely on automated solutions. In the absence of strong institutional safeguards, civic education becomes the first real line of defense against state-driven manipulation. Across Venezuela, civil society groups have built an ecosystem of digital literacy initiatives, like online workshops, short explainer videos, guidebooks, and infographics aimed at giving citizens practical skills. These programs teach people how to spot common red flags in manipulated content and verify information, use tools like reverse image research, and also slow down when confronted with emotional narratives designed to provoke reactive sharing. These initiatives matter, but they only operate under a structural disadvantage. Disinformation is quick, free, and emotional, while verification is slow and methodical. Fact-checkers must gather evidence and contextualize claims, while propagandists only need to produce something that feels plausible and spreads fast. The result is an asymmetry, because corrective information exists, but it competes against an environment where falsehood circulates faster than the truth. Organizations like the Atlantic Council's DFR Lab and the International Fact-Checking Network track disinformation campaigns in Venezuela, documenting tactics and producing forensic analysis. Their work is essential for generating global awareness, but in an authoritarian context, their influence inside the country remains limited. Ultimately, the struggle is deeply asymmetric, because the government has unlimited resources, controls the infrastructure, and also faces no legal accountability, while fact-checkers operate under threat and also have restricted access. Experts propose a variety of countermeasures: transparency labels for AI-generated media, mandatory disclosures for political content, improved algorithmic oversight, platform partnerships with regional fact-checkers, and also broader digital literacy in school curricula. But these solutions require a democratic environment, which doesn't exist in Venezuela.
The 2024 Venezuelan election illustrates how contemporary authoritarian systems can employ digital tools, including AI-generated media and algorithmic amplification, to influence political perceptions, rather than relying solely on traditional censorship. The Maduro government has integrated these technologies into a wider strategy of information management. In this environment, synthetic or highly engineered content circulates rapidly, often outpacing conventional journalistic reporting. Emotionally charged material tends to receive greater algorithmic visibility than evidence-based information, and platform dynamics prioritize and judgment over accuracy. As a result, political interpretation began forming within digital ecosystems long before citizens encounter formal campaign messaging or cast their votes. Disinformation in this context functions not merely as a supplement to state power, but as a structural component of how political reality is mediated and understood.
Anyway, it's crazy to think how far we've come. Journalists who don't exist, and speaking of things that don't exist. Are you sure I'm real? Maybe I'm just a really well-written prompt. Just kidding. Or am I?